Good morning and welcome back to Gaming with ADHD. Today we are going to do something a little bit different. We are going to have an interview with Jason Hardy. This is something that I have wanted to do on the channel for quite a while, but I'm very excited. He's been very gracious enough to give us some time, and so we're going to talk about game design, himself in general, and what's coming up for Shadowrun, and hopefully find something interesting in it. So with that being said, do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, like the video, do all that stuff, make sure that everybody knows about it, and hopefully even get him to come back sometime. So with that said, let's bring him in. Jason, how's it going?
How's it going?
It's going great, sir. Thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. With that said, let's jump into it. So for starters, because I'm probably going to have a few people who don't know who you are, give us a little bit of background. Tell us who you are, where you, whatever you want to tell us.
I'm Jason Hardy. I'm the Shadowrun Online developer for Catalyst Game Labs. I've been doing that since 2009 somehow. Before that, I was writing for a lot of different things, a lot of freelance, but especially Shadowrun and Battletech. I did a lot of writing and editing for them, including a number of novels for both lines. So I've been working in the universes for quite some time, but Shadowrun has always been something I've enjoyed a ton. So when I got the chance to work on it full time, I seized it by the throat.
That's fantastic. All right. And so with that said, so you've obviously been involved in this for quite a while, but let's go back in time a little bit. What is the first game that you remember playing?
The first game that I remember playing, probably Candyland.
Okay. All right. Then let's try upping it a little bit. What's the we'll call it more grown-up type game you first remember playing?
The first good game I played would probably be Acquire. I had a friend in high school who had a copy of Acquire, and we played that, and that showed me that there was a whole lot more to games than just rolling dice and moving. I love that game still. I have a copy of it and play it fairly regularly. It's a fantastic game.
Which version do you have, though? Is it the old 3M version, or is it some of the newer incarnations?
It's one of the newer ones, but there was one for a time, I think around the turn of the century, and I really love saying turn of the century. It's so much fun. When they switched it from like hotels to utility companies, and they made some variation where you could break a rule once per game, and I didn't like that one at all. So they went back to hotels, and it's pretty similar rules to the version I played. Back when I was playing it, we had the lovely 3D tray that had rims so everything would stand in. I think I've got not quite as good pieces, but
I believe that was probably the Avalon Hill version.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
One fantastic thing, because a few years ago we were all playing everything remote, and so we got a game of Acquire with a bunch of friends online. So it was two couples all playing in different, or three couples playing in different places. And one of the people made a little program that would choose your tile for you and then text you what your tile was, so that we could all get our tiles randomly drawn and know what it was without having to figure out how to use three different stockpiles. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's actually, wow. That's really cool. I mean, especially the last couple of years, just some of the innovations in gaming, while people adjust to playing remotely or things like that. So that's, some of the things that the coders have done is absolutely amazing. But that's really cool. I will be honest, I have not played Acquire yet. It is one that is actually going to end up, I am going to play it here soon, because my parents have owned it literally my entire life. They have the old 3M bookshelf one. I remember looking at it as a kid, and I just put it back. I had no idea what I was looking at, and for some reason, over the last 30 years, I've never gone back and looked at it again. So,
well, the great thing is it's a pretty elegant little game. It's not all that complicated, but the strategy is deep. It's a good game.
And that, to me, that's actually some of the best games when it, like you and I both have those games where it's, the manual and, study for the next 8 years to try and start playing the game. But those games where it just ends up being just some little simple mechanics, but then just it opens up that depth. Yeah. I love playing those kinds of games.
Especially if that depth is playing the other players, which I enjoy a lot, and you have to in Acquire.
Yeah. I am usually really bad at that. I absolutely despise apples to apples for that.
It's not at the level of apples to apples where there are no rules and judgment goes out the window.
That's fair. I'm just playing the other players. I'm really bad at that. So, all right. So Acquire. Of
course, I played D&D really young too. I was in on Redbox D&D back in the day.
Okay. I mean that is not surprising. So fun fact about myself, I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons until at least 3rd edition.
Wow. You never had to deal with Thaco?
In 8th grade, one time I went to a friend's house and we made characters, and that was it.
So you theoretically had to deal with it.
Right. I could have, and then nothing happened. So yeah, I know about Thaco. Never used it. But that is pretty cool. What other role-playing games, have you played regularly, or is it just D&D and then straight into Shadowrun?
A lot of D&D. There was some Star Wars game. I had a group for a while, and we would rotate between the game master. So one of them did kind of a homebrew Star Wars game that was a lot of fun. So those are the ones I've played the most regularly. I've done different one-offs, like I always forget the horror game where you pull Jenga tiles as the resolution mechanic.
Fiasco?
It's not Fiasco, because Fiasco is the noirish.
Okay. But I can't remember. I
always forget the title, but I played that. That's a good game, as long as you've got a good game master.
Didn't Will Wheaton do that one on tabletop?
Pretty sure he did, yeah.
I think so. So, all right. I'll find that and I'll put that in the description later. Okay. And do you prefer being the player or the GM?
Usually I prefer being the player, at least lately, just because it's rare that I am the player. So I kind of miss being the player, so I'm anxious to be it.
Okay.
But if I get a more regular rotation, I play for a while, and then I get the itch to GM, and then I GM for a while, and I get an itch to play.
Okay. How often do you get a game in?
Right now, it's a little hit and miss, just because we haven't had a regular role-playing group. I did play some D&D just a week or two ago, though. So.
Okay. And what kind of character do you normally go with?
Rogue, usually.
Okay.
I like ranged weapons a lot, and I like having to think about a situation in ways other than just beating people's head in.
Okay. That seems to fit your personality.
Run away from conflict. That's my personality.
I would not say that you run away from conflict.
Depends on the type of conflict.
That's fair. I mean, I would say you come up with creative solutions to conflict.
Very diplomatic.
Exactly. Okay. Then let's see. All right, so let's get into a little bit of game design. Other than other games, what inspires you when you are trying to come up with mechanics?
So the first part is just what would make an interesting probability curve. So some of it's just the math. So there's a role-playing system I've been working on that hopefully will have official news about sometime, and we're about to have a special guest. You see her hair.
Oh, hi, welcome.
My daughter AC. But the system that we've been working on started. No, don't do that, please. Started with a spreadsheet of dice pool calculations, and look at how does the probability curve change as you combine things differently. And it was a really elegant curve. It increased at the pace I wanted to, and made it so improvements were meaningful without being overwhelming. And so once we saw that spreadsheet, then it was, now can we make a system using those probabilities? So having that curve helps, but that goes back to just meaningful choices. That's the main heart of anything, is does your mechanic allow people to make a decision that meaningfully affects the game? And that means it can't be too good or too bad. Because if it's obviously good, then the choice isn't meaningful. Everyone should do it. And if it's obviously bad, then you had no effect when you make the choice. So you got to find a way to give them a choice that has some meaning but isn't obvious.
Okay. So you're talking about a spreadsheet full of math and full of calculations. And I probably should have asked this earlier, but so I mean, do you have a background in that? Is that where you went to school for, or no?
As I like to say, I have taught more economics classes than I've taken.
Okay.
So I guess I do have some background. I worked for about a decade in economic policy analysis, but I really came at that from a writing and editing point of view more than a numbers guy. But I like looking at numbers just because sometimes they tell a story. I did some work for my stepmother a while ago where she had a big survey, and she was doing it the second time. And the first time she did it, she got the big spreadsheet of answers and was like, I don't want to deal with all this. And I was really excited. Like, ooh, let me just stare at the numbers and see what story they tell and see how I can craft them. So
okay.
I like doing that because you can get some meaning out of them. But my background is writing. I was an English major and a journalism grad student.
Got it. Okay. So I really like the way that you described that. You talked about, looking at what kind of stories, whether it's numbers or a situation, what kind of a story is that going to tell? And so how does that impact, I'm not formulating a good question on that because we already talked about that. So what else do you tend to look for then? Obviously, you want your choices, but what other kinds of things do you look for when you're trying to come up with mechanics?
So some of it is what feel you think the game's going to have. And if I look at some of the differences between Shadowrun 5 and Shadowrun 6, Shadowrun 5 was interesting because we came up with the tagline, everything has a price, really early in the development process. So that meant that a lot of the rules decisions were based on that idea. We wanted to make sure that there was always some price, that anything you did had a consequence. And so that's where part of where limits came from, is that you needed to decide, if you're going to decide to keep some of your attributes really low, then you're going to have some dice pools that aren't going to be as effective as you want them to be. So you're going to have to think about what price you're paying to get the effect that you want. And that kept going through the whole edition. With SR6, the clear statement of theme didn't come as quickly, but there were two main ideas going on. And one of them was streamlining it just to try to make it simpler. But the other one was to try to build up to kind of a big cinematic moment where there's an accumulation of good choices And when you get enough, then you can do something really big and dramatic and cool. And so a lot of the Edge system is trying to build towards those sort of moments where you are very careful in your tactics or careful in your choices to get enough advantage. And then when you have enough edge, you exploded into some dramatic moment. So it was a little more cinematic, a little flashier, because we wanted to be faster than SR5. So some of the feel that you want the game to have informs how you make the mechanics.
That makes sense. So what do you think? We'll kind of piggyback off of that. When you were working on Six World, what was the single hardest thing to design when making that change?
So, I mean, the single hardest thing overall was trying to make a 300-page Shadowrun rulebook, because you're going to have to trim something. But then what that all came down to was trying to make the Edge system work. When we started designing it, it wasn't the system that used attack rating and defense rating and compared them was not Edge. It was another type of in-game currency that you could earn by having a better attack rating or by getting cover. And so as we were playtesting it, and it took a lot of work just to get to a stage where I felt it could be playtested. And then as we were playtesting it, the feedback that kept coming back was, this new system that you've designed is just Edge. Why do you have two systems doing what Edge should do? So then it was rearranging everything and putting the new mechanics that we made into an Edge system and trying to get that to flow all together. So just trying to get that central core mechanic was the hardest part of the system, and trying to get it to feel right.
Okay. And I mean, obviously you're probably going to say yes, but I mean, do you think that you succeeded, or do you think that there may still need to be some work done on it?
I mean, obviously, yes, but I always think I succeeded. I did great. I think with any experiment, there's things that you learn as you go along and do it, and things that you see that could be different. I think that's one of the fun things about the Sixth World Companion that will be coming out later this month. See how I roll my answers right into a product plug?
You're shill anything you want. Well, almost anything you want.
And I'm happy to see Hal Nelson out here in the chat, because he was instrumental in this. We have a chapter that's full of optional rules for SR6. So if you want to change the way that you play Shadowrun 6, there's a bunch of rules that you can choose like a menu to change the effect of the game. And some of that is because we know that everyone likes to have their game be a little different. Who runs the rules from the book 100% as written?
I was to say, I've never heard of any game not ending up getting house ruled somehow.
Yeah. So it's going to happen, and that's fine. So if you're going to change it anyway, we thought we could give a bunch of options that might help and that have been worked on and thought of and play tested that could work and tweak your game in a different way. So that's a fun chapter in Sixth World Companion. So there's always tweaks that can be done when it comes time to do Shadowrun 7. Maybe it will be a revision of SR6 where we take some of the ideas and then figure out what the next iteration is. Maybe it'll be something different. I have not thought about that yet.
So Shadowrun 7th isn't in development then?
No, it isn't. Unless they're developing it behind my back. Which is fun.
I mean,
because
I think
work.
I was going to say, I think I saw a job posting somewhere. No, it's
just like those Catalyst managers.
Okay, so then similar question. What are you most proud of from Six World? What change would you be most proud of?
That it's 300 pages long. That was the mandate I got from the beginning. That was the part that was causing stress, is how do we streamline it but still make it Shadowrun? Because we'd already done a streamlined version in Anarchy, which is way streamlined, but I knew that that was going to be far more streamlined than I wanted the core Shadowrun game to be. So how do you make a version of Shadowrun that's streamlined, but still gives all the options you want? So there's still good gear options, there's still good augmentation options, but also only takes up about 300 pages. So the fact that it did it, and I feel it plays well. But if we want to get even more specific, I had so much fun with the magic and the spell system in SR6 because from the ground up, it was built to have these spell ingredients, and you saw the spell construction system in Street Weird. So that system that's in that book of how to build that, I used from the beginning. That's how you build spells in SR6. And so to build that in right from the get-go so that we could put it in to the magic book was a lot of fun.
Okay. So and I'll definitely want to come back to that. But real quick, why the mandate for 300 pages?
Basically because we'd already done the big book. So we'd already done a pretty mega maxi book. So it was time to try something different. It was time to see if we could make a more streamlined. Some of it is because that seems to be where a lot of the market is going, but that's not really the whole story. If you want to play a big maxi version of Shadowrun, Shadowrun 5 exists and has a lot of source books and support for it, so you can have fun, all the fun you want playing Shadowrun 5. I didn't want to do Shadowrun 5 again or Shadowrun 5 slightly tweaked because Shadowrun 5 still was mostly a takeoff of Shadowrun 4. It built on the foundation of Shadowrun 4. So I didn't want to revise that just again. It was time to do something different. And that different felt like it would be a good idea to go streamlined.
Okay. That makes sense. Dang it. I had something there. I'm so bad at this. So yeah, you don't have to lie to me. No. So okay, that makes sense. Then let's see. So what is it? Okay. I know what I want to say. I just need to word it properly. Okay, so technically Shadowrun is a licensed property. Catalyst doesn't own it, but when you're working on it, do you work on it like it's a licensed property, or do you actually get the flexibility where you can pretty much do whatever you want?
Tops does not give us much feedback. So just to get into the whole corporate machinations of why we don't own Shadowrun. When FASA closed down, they gave the rights to Shadowrun and Battletech to Jordan Weissman, who helped create it, and he took them to his new company, WizKids. And WizKids made a lot of clicky tech games, so your hero clicks and your battle or mech warrior clicks and all that, and Shadowrun duels, like the figure I have behind me there.
Hey, I recognize that guy.
You should. And they made sports clicks, which looked like it might be the next wave in collectible sports figures. So Tops bought WizKids so that they could have sports clicks. Sports clicks did not do what Tops wanted it to do. You don't find them around much anymore. But they had all the rights to WizKids. They did not buy WizKids because of Battletech and Shadowrun. I think it's fair of me to say that. But they have them, so okay. So we do the work. We send them royalty checks. They don't have to worry about us much. So
as long as the checks are coming, they don't care.
Tops is sold to Fanatics because Fanatics wanted their baseball card operations. So we have a new owner who, again, is not buying us because of Shadowrun and Battletech. It's incidental. Right. So what they're going to do with it and how they're going to see it, I don't know. We'll find out. But for the most part, the only things I hear from Tops are, no nipples. So we keep, and no decapitations. So we got to keep a certain lid on the gore, and no nipples. Other than that, they let us run.
But you have Echo Chernik doing art. How do you avoid the nipples?
By making Echo mad. We sometimes have to tell her, we love your art, Echo. It's fantastic, but gotta cover it.
Yeah, no, I was absolutely teasing. I actually can't really see it on screen, but we'll see. Can we get it?
Yeah,
that did not work well with the background. Yeah, that is absolutely one of my favorite pieces of art from her. She absolutely does great work. I just thought it was really funny when you brought up the 2 rules that you have for your licensed property. I think that was fantastic.
Well, and she is so fantastic to work with. She did the cover of Sixth World Companion, and making art notes for a cover for her is the simplest thing in the world, because I just say, Echo, we'd like a Shadowrun piece that shows unusual meta types and looks cool. Could you please make that? And she does, and it's fantastic.
Well, and she's a player of Shadowrun as well,
yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah, I played the game with her back a number of years ago. She's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, actually, I did play in a game with her. Holy crap! How long ago was that?
Well, I think it was Origins it's either Gen Con or Origins that I played with her, but it was a long time ago.
Well, you ran a game. I think it was. And I'm gonna kind of out myself to and my inexperience actually playing. I think it was my first game actually playing Shadowrun. You ran it. It was at Gen Con, because I've never been to Origins. And we had like 10 people around the table.
That must have been the game, yeah.
And I remember you're like, hey Brian, we're gonna play a game. Come play. I'm like, okay. And Echo was there. I don't remember anything about the game.
It was a fantastic group, because it's the type of group where you just throw out a plot hook and they start running with it and making jokes and planning, and you just have to listen to their most paranoid ideas and work it into the story. It's great. They were fantastic.
No, I absolutely agree with that. That went. I know it went well. I know everybody had fun. But yeah, that was good. All right, so moving forward, what is your least favorite part of game design?
Least favorite part, applying styles is not my favorite thing, but every time a document comes in, you generally have to put the styles on it. So that's just scrolling through a document and hitting keyboard shortcuts. That's what do you mean? Great.
What do you mean styles?
So if I'm going to send a document to layout, it helps layout a lot to have styles assigned to the right thing. So body text should have the right style assigned to it. The header should all be properly assigned style, header 1, header 2, header 3. And sometimes freelancers, and we love freelancers, bless their hearts. Sometimes freelancers make their own versions of the styles. Sometimes they don't make different styles. They just change the font size and bolding so it looks like it, and you don't know it didn't have the style until your layout guy yells at you that it didn't have the style applied. So there's a decent amount of time spent just scrolling through a document, highlighting text, and then hitting my shortcut for the style. It's not the most fun. Page XX corrections are also not the most fun. When at the end of the document, you just search for all the XXs and then have one PDF where you make the note and another one where you search and say it's on this page and then put that in. It's very glamorous.
Okay. And then on the flip side, what's your favorite part? What's your most favorite?
Most favorite is coming up with the ideas at the beginning. So coming up with a book idea, writing the project spec where the book could be anything is a lot of fun, and dreaming of the best possible version of it is a lot of fun.
Okay. And so with that said, of all of the things that you've done so far for Six World, or just any of your designs in general, I guess. Actually, no. You know what? Let's keep it to Shadowrun for this one. For Six World, if you could go back and change one thing, what would it be?
One more proofing pass and no errata out of the gate.
Okay. What about rules wise?
Rules wise, I mean, once you see the rules that we wanted to change in the errata, so that if you've looked at the errata, and there's a fact document that we'll be putting up before too long, that will list all the changes. So it's tough to come up with an exact one other than what's in those documents.
Do you find that do you find yourself ever really regretting those design choices, or once you've made the call, do you usually just, all right, it's out in the wild and just have to deal with it?
More of the latter, and usually I think we, through enough play testing, the worst offenders are usually caught. Like and this is a story I know I tell a decent amount with SR5. I had designed what an initiative system I really liked, that was kind of a point system, very board gamey, that you have a certain number of action points per round, and then you can spend them in different ways. So, it replaces major action or minor action, or an SR5, complex action, simple action, free action. And you can just spend the points as you want. And it gave a lot of interesting mechanical possibilities to it. So you could have interrupt actions that would, and we eventually managed to get interrupt actions in, but you could have interrupt actions you could take at different times. You could have actions that sucked away other people's action points. And so there were a lot of fun mechanics in it. It slowed the game to a crawl. And the last thing Shadowrun needs in combat is for combat to be slower. And we kept seeing that in play testing. And I really wanted it to work. And I really wanted it to be a good system, but it wasn't. It was slowing the game down. So we had to pull it out and put in a new initiative system that ended up, I think, working much better and working much faster. But it was one of those things where I really wanted it to work, but it just didn't.
No, I totally get that. You're trying to innovate, you're trying to do something different. But then, do you need to reinvent the wheel? Sometimes.
Well, especially if the thing that you thought was improving it has a glaring flaw, then that's a problem.
Right. Absolutely. So, okay. Then when you're working on these designs, do you try to get into the head of the players, or more the game master?
It sort of depends on the product. It's game master for campaign books. So, sorry, I apologize for my phone ringing.
How dare you?
I'll tell them to go away. All right. It's game master for the campaign book, because you want to give them the information that they need to tell the story and to see how the different parts connect. For most of the other rules, though, you want to be in the player's head, because you want to have some sense of how they'll use it. Will this be interesting to use, first of all? And what is the potential for abuse? Is this too overpowered? Because there are times when I read a rule and just alarm bells go off, and you see that is not going to be equal to other things. People are going to leap toward that option because it's too overpowered.
What do you struggle most when you're trying to do that? What do you struggle most with?
Well, the biggest struggle for all of it is remembering all the moving parts of a big game line. There's a lot of moving parts, so you just have to try to say, okay, if this does this, what else is out there that does this? What else might this affect or stack with that could make it more powerful than it seems at first glance? So trying to keep track of all the moving parts. It's just good to have a good pool of knowledgeable people, so it doesn't all have to be in my head.
Right. How many people do work on Shadowrun for you?
So the freelancer pool usually stands at a few dozen people. Their availability shifts from book to book. So I get proposals in, usually around a dozen-ish proposals per book. And then I pick out the strongest ones. Usually the amount of writers is 4 to 10. 10's higher than I like to have because that starts to get fractured. Although some writers, when we've had these higher groups, have been coordinating really well. So as long as they're coordinating, a higher number can work. And then there's usually an editor. I rotate among a small pool of editors. And then there's the proofers. The proofing pool is also a couple dozen people, but usually it's only 4 to 6 who have the time to look over a book.
Okay.
So there's a lot.
So how hands-on are you with each individual product then?
Very. I make the project spec. I read every single little bit of everything that is written. I make the art notes and then look at the art as it comes in. I enter the proofing comments so that when the proofing comments come in, I can pick and choose, and their batting average is very high. The vast majority of proofing comments go in. There's a few I'm like, no, sorry, that's not going in.
For the idiot, what's a proofing comment?
So the process is, writers write everything in Word and then send it to me. I edit it. It goes to layout, and then we get PDF proof. So that shows what the book will look like when it's actually printed out. And so then I send those to the proofing pool, and they look at, typos, and sometimes they do some balance things. Any last minute comments they can put in. If you're editing before layout, it's okay to do like major surgery, where you can rip out a whole section and replace it with something else, or you can trash something, or you can say, this needs 2 more pages, put in 2 more pages. For proofing, you want to try to keep the word count generally the same as what it started out as. You're going to mess up page flow. So it's not as big a change as you sometimes get in editing, but it's those smaller changes, grammatical changes, sometimes style change, and that's usually where I overrule them. Sometimes a proofer is trying to go for strict grammatic style, but the voice for the piece works better if it's not grammatical, so the proofer loses.
Okay. Fair enough. So then with that said, when you're trying to come up with a new product, what's the start process on that?
So the very start process is I make a schedule for a year. So I plan out what books are going to come out for the year. So I've got the 2023 schedule already written down, and it's got a paragraph or so summary of each book. And then when it comes time to start getting the book moving in serious ways, I do a project spec. So that says how long the book is going to be, gives a summary of it, says why it's going to be cool, gives a chapter outline. If some chapters need to follow a certain format, then show what that format's going to be. Then that goes to the freelancers and they pitch for it, and then they get assigned, and then they write, and then we move ahead.
Okay. So let me get this right. So you come up with your idea and you put it out there, and then the freelancers, if I'm understanding, kind of determine the direction. Basically, they're like, oh, well, if it's this book, I want to do a chapter on, let's pick the upcoming the augmentation book.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody comes up and says, okay, I want to do a chapter on new headgear, we'll call it. So like eyes, ears, cybernetic type stuff. And so you're like, oh, I really like your idea for that section. So you go ahead and write it.
Right. So basically there will be a chapter outline. So I'll tell them what chapters are going to be there. This is the cyberware chapter. This is the bioware chapter. This is the gene tech chapter. This is the drugs chapter, whatever I decide to go in there. And then they'll pitch and say, I would like to write the cyberware chapter. Here's some cool cyberware I'd like to put in it. And so based on how cool the things they propose are, how much of a workload they're going to do. Some of my estimation of how much of a workload they should have goes into that, and then I make assignments.
Okay. That's different. I hadn't ever considered that. Let's see. Then got a bunch of questions. I'm just trying to make it all, organized and seem like I know what I'm doing.
So am I.
Then let's see. So, I'm trying to. Do I want to stick on Shadowrun or branch out a little bit? Actually, okay. So, what would you say? What would you say your design philosophy is for Shadowrun?
Try not to be cumbersome, but useful. So make something that's useful for players without making a structure that is too overwrought. So make it so they can understand what it does, but is fun to use.
Okay. And what would you say the top 3 things that influence that philosophy are?
So does it relate to a way of doing things that already exists? If you're creating a whole new way to do things, that's adding some cumbersomeness. Is it clearly explained so intuitively I know, okay, this is going to do this? And is it distinct enough from something that already exists? If it duplicates something that's already there, we don't need it. So does it do a new thing in a way that's easy to understand and fun?
Okay. And then playing off of that, what would you say the next fun thing is that's coming?
So Sixth World Companion is the very most next fun thing that's coming, and that's always the companion book in Shadowrun is always a fun book because you get new character creation systems, you get the meta types. So this is where people can build their really outlandish character types. So you get your pixie street samurai or whatever you decide to design. And you're infected, and all sorts of the wild creatures are out there, and a whole bunch of qualities. And so it really just opens up a whole lot of player options. And so players like having options, as it turns out. So it's always fun.
Yeah, but when you
go ahead.
I was going to say, but when you cut your book down to 300 pages, it reduces those options.
and that was a trade-off. The gear section did get a little shorter, but I think we still managed to pack in a fair amount of choices. But that just means the next book has more.
Right. It means there is a next book.
Also that.
It means Jason and his writers have jobs. Or at least work. All right. Then let's see. What was it? So okay, so you mentioned actually the different character types, like the pixies. You did a PDF back in 2020, the Ingentis Athletes, where you brought out the different troll meta types.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be rolled in to the runner companion, or is that going to be still be on its own?
That's still on its own, but there are meta type variants in Sixth World Companion. So that book, the full content of that was not put in to Sixth World Companion, but if you need some meta type variants, they are there.
Okay. Are you still going to do more of the PDFs like Ingentis Athletes, but for the different meta types? Or
yeah, we did Loffer's Legions, so we did that for Drakes, and so hopefully there will be more Shadow stock in the future. There are some ebooks along a different line in the works. There's a follow-up to the crime catalog being worked on by the same person who wrote the crime catalog, because he loves crime and comes up with fun ideas to do with that corporation constantly. So If he's having fun, I'm willing to let him have fun.
Well,
And then
and
some increased lifestyle rules or some broad lifestyle rules are in the near future.
okay, and I'll be honest, I really like those PDF supplements. It is, I will admit, it is an easy way for Catalyst to get a quick $5 out of me. Just because they are different. They are, it's clearly not enough information to make a whole book out of. But it just helps build out that world, and get more information. Like we just got the Seattle book, but there's not a Nan book. There's not a the oh crap Amazonia. That's the one I'm thinking of. Like me, I nerd out on anything Brazil related, and I've searched through the Shadowrun archives and not found a ton there. So seeing these PDFs, being able to pick a location, Louisville, for instance.
Yeah, and that's always been a fun thing in the PDF line is the Cities by Shadow series, when we can pick out, there's the Montreal book, San Francisco, if I remember correctly, and you can profile a city in there. So it is a good thing to have.
Okay. Let's see then. All right. So, okay, this is a question that I've been meaning to ask, but my notes are all a disaster. Okay. So Shadowrun is known for being a little, we'll say, gritty. The corporations are in charge. Basically, if you are at the bottom of the rungs, if you're on the rungs even, good luck trying to move up, kind of a thing. So for me personally, it kind of ends up like I like stories that are a little more hopeful. And I'm not trying to say that Shadowrun doesn't do that, but how do you look, or do you try to put in hope into Shadowrun, or are we just gonna is it just gonna stick with, we'll say, the life is horrible and just deal with it?
No, we try to put hope in there. I think just by the nature of a dystopia, the hope has to usually be on a more individual level or small community level than a large city or nationwide level. So you might not be able to make a whole city into a wonderful, happy paradise of friendliness and sharing, but you can make lives better. You can right some wrongs. You can build out an enclave of people who do look out for each other. And you see that in different barons communities. You see that sometimes happening in Berlin. That's some of what's Rob Thomas has been working on with Motor City in Detroit, is some of these runner havens where the corps have pulled out. There have been some disasters, but people are going to say, we're not giving up on this area, and if we need to make it into something by ourselves, then we will. And we had the book back in the end of 5th edition, Better Than Bad, which was all about hooding and the idea that you could try to run not just for money, but do shadow runs to make something better.
Okay. Then let's see. So because I want to
in the comments here that Hal has totally swallowed the elven propaganda that Tirtangira is a place of happiness and sharing. You need to switch away from the High Prince's private news feed and look at a broader selection of information sources. That will help.
I mean, I think we could all take advantage of some broader news sources. But no, I like what you're saying there about the you know, like the smaller communities or organizations or groups that are focusing on each other, trying to make things a little bit better. Because lately, especially since you and I have become friends, I've gotten more into cyberpunk and that kind of genre. And typically they are that negative. It's just like, no, you can't succeed, you can't do good. It's just all horribleness. But I don't necessarily think that is what Shadowrun is. I mean, it's clearly a product of its time, but it's also been evolving since it originally came out.
Yeah.
And you know, you've been involved with it for, well, more than you've been the line developer.
Yeah.
So it. Anyways, I
first pitched a Shadowrun novel to the Shadowrun line developer in 2000.
Wow.
And FASA closed so that they could stop me.
But you are not to be deterred.
No. And so then I got offered another one, and that editor got fired. And then they offered me another one, and I warned that editor, the last two people who have talked about Shadowrun novels with me lost their jobs. Are you sure you want to do this?
So, actually, that's then a question. So, obviously, I mean, you like Shadowrun. Why did you decide to become the line developer? Were you already working for Catalyst and it just happened to be open, or is this
I was freelancing for Catalyst at the time, doing a lot of editing and some writing. And so I heard the job was open. And I took it for a few reasons. One of them is just because I love Shadowrun. I mean, way back, the reason I pitched the Shadowrun novel back in 2000 was because I wrote some Crimson Skies novels for FASA. And
wow,
the editor liked them. Yeah. Never came out in English.
What?
The editor liked them and said, are there any of our other properties you'd like to work on? And I said, Shadowrun. And she said, well, the demand on Shadowrun is pretty high. People really like Shadowrun, so that might be tough. And I said, Shadowrun. How about Shadowrun? He said, okay, put together a pitch for the line developer and we'll go from there. And so I put together a pitch and he told me, this is great for 2 years ago. We need to tell you about this plot line we're working on called A Year of the Comet. And so then I tried to update it and then they closed down. And so I wrote a novel for WizKids when they were doing the Shadowrun Duels game. And then I was freelancing for FanPro, and then FanPro morphed into Catalyst. And then I heard that the job was going to be open. And so I wanted to work on Shadowrun, but also I wanted to make sure Shadowrun came out. I wanted to make sure that books were released on a somewhat regular basis. And I wanted to try to give it the attention that it needed to keep building out the universe. And so if the best way for me to make sure books were coming out on a decent schedule was to become line developer, then okay, that's what I did.
And I think that, I mean, I've followed it much more closely since Six World came out, but I think you've done really well with that at keeping a relatively not necessarily frequent, but frequent enough that, you know, you're not stale between releases. It hasn't been 6 months to a year. I mean, I think at most maybe 2 months between a new rule book or source book.
Right now we're on supposed to be on an every 2 month schedule. Things, because of the shipping problems, got a little messed up at the end of 2021. So we ended up having to release every month for the first few months of 2022. But then starting after May, we'll go every 2 months. And yeah, it's not been easy to make a regular schedule. There's a lot of pitfalls to it, but for the past couple of years, we've actually managed to keep on schedule, which has been unusual.
Okay. So in that time, would you, and I'm building up to a question, but I'm going to lead it this way. In that time, would you say that you've received negative feedback?
While I've been line developer.
Or what, like, yeah, while you've been line developer.
Are you familiar with the internet? Have you met them? There's a place called Reddit. Just go to our Shadowrun, mention my name, and fun things will happen.
I may have heard somewhere that you are the worst line developer ever.
Yeah, but you heard that from my son.
Well, okay, that's fair. But there is actually an honest question there. Is there any of that negative feedback that you've actually taken to heart?
Sure. I don't want there to be mistakes in books, and I don't want them to have problems. So if there is something that needs to be improved, then I try to improve it. And there have been a lot of processes that had to adapt or had to be put in place or had to change in order to get the books closer to where I want them to be. So there's a ton of learning. There's a ton of gathering the right people to do it. And so I think that's a huge part of why things have been on schedule recently, is the pool of people is really good. And they're really, they know Shadowrun, they care about Shadowrun, and they're reliable when it comes to doing what they say they're going to do. And that, because there's no way I can do all of that work on my own. And so if people are holding up their end and doing good work, and they are, the quality of work that I've seen lately has been really good, then that helps things happen. But it's not always easy to get and stay at that point.
Sure. Except for that guy working on Louisville, but we won't talk about him.
Yeah, well, he was never given a schedule, so off schedule if he doesn't have one.
That's fair. All right. So then what kind of, okay, without trying to imply that 7th edition is coming, because we've already said that it's not coming. Do you foresee anything that needs to be changed in Shadowrun? Is there something where it's like, okay, now that it's out in the broader public, this didn't quite work as well, and and we need to find a way to improve it
for 7th edition? Have not given it any thought.
No. Right. No. I'm not. I'm trying to say that we're not talking about 7th edition. I'm trying to say something in 6th World right now where, maybe we could improve it in a runner's companion type book, or a PDF supplement of, this doesn't quite work the way we want it, but here's something else we could try, or at least put it out in a supplement and play test it, see what happens.
I think most of those you'll see in the optional rules in the companion.
Okay.
So that not a whole lot pressing on my mind. There's always more options to do. And so you'll see that in the augmentation book, and there'll be a critter book in 2023. So there'll be more fun stuff. And then we'll get to think about the real fun stuff like advanced combat and advanced magic and advanced matrix for future years. And those options are a lot of fun to play with, to see what can you take things to another level without bogging it down in too much complexity or overpoweredness. So that's hard, but it can be a lot of fun.
Okay. So would you, so based on your knowledge, would you say that the Shadowrun community is growing or staying the same?
That's a really hard question to answer because it's tough to measure. One of the things that would help a lot is more virtual tabletop support, so that if we had official like Shadowrun stuff on Roll20, then I could watch that over time and see how are people engaging with Roll20. Still, that's not going to be necessarily a microcosm of the whole player base. It's really hard to get a cross section of the entire Shadowrun player base. But if we had some of those tools and I could, more in real time see how people are engaging with it, that would be a useful measurement. For things like, other measures that we've used in the past are events run at conventions or events run by the demo team throughout the year, but that's been thrown completely off by the past 2 years. So that's
obviously
a tough one to measure too. So I don't know. I hope so, but.
Well, that one was actually leading into this question. So what do you use for outreach? What are you doing to attract new players?
So there are a few things that we're working on that have been frustratingly slow to gestate, but they will get born because I will keep poking people until they happen. So the first one was just making the rule book smaller and more accessible. But the reason I mentioned that I would like to have more official support on Roll20 is we're working on putting more stuff onto Roll20. There's just a few hoops we have to jump through, but once we jump through them, if we can put some stuff on there, then there'll be more dedicated support. And there's another virtual tabletop that we're looking at. So if we can get more dedicated Shadowrun support on virtual tabletops, I think that will help a broader range of players get in. We've been working on Hollow Streets, which will be the fan-generated content community on DriveThruRPG for Shadowrun, so that if you want to write your own Shadowrun material and sell it on DriveThruRPG, you can sell it through Hollow Streets, so that you don't have to go through me if you don't want to. So that's been in the works and is coming. There is the part of the announcement that I just put up earlier today about all the stuff coming through for the rest of the year is the re-release of the Shadowrun trading card game from back in the 90s. We have updated the graphics, updated some of the art, but tweaked the rules a little bit, and that will be coming out, and we hope that will be a way to reach out to new players. And then there's also the great opportunity of the Harebrained Schemes trilogy of Shadowrun games coming to consoles, so Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch. So we are working with, or at least discussing with Paradox about what things can we do to support each other to reach all the Shadowrun fans we can reach.
Okay. Wow, that is a lot. And actually I don't you said Hollow Streets, right?
Hollow Streets, long-time Shadowrun people will roll their eyes at that name a little bit. That's why I'm using it.
You poke the bear?
So a long time ago, back when FanPro was doing Shadowrun and BattleTech, Catalyst started as In Media Res Productions, which did the Battlecore website.
Yes, I remember that.
Put out BattleTech fiction monthly. There was supposed to be a Shadowrun monthly subscription website of fiction called Hollow Streets. And it was supposed to materialize, and I started writing content for it because I'm like, whoa, we could use some intro stories. And I said, great, I will give you some intro stories. And it never materialized. So I decided to put that name to another thing that's having trouble materializing, but it will come out.
Do you have any kind of a time frame on Hollow Streets, or is that still something that
I don't want to put a time frame, because every time I've given a time frame, it turns out I'm wrong.
Okay.
So I know the steps that need to happen, and most of them have. So we've got art packs together, so that if you're going to generate your own book, you can pull art from the packs that we'll put up. So those are all ready to go. Some templates have been designed. It really is just a matter of getting the last templates done.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the content guidelines and the basic user agreement. All that stuff is ready to go. So I think the templates are really the only hurdle left, and maybe a logo design I have to check. So it's really close, but there keep being urgent things that pop up in front of it.
And I'm totally not trying to pin you down on anything, but do you think it will be this year, or are we looking at maybe next year, the year after?
I really want it to be this. I wanted it to be 3 months ago, so I really would like it to be this year.
Got it. Okay. So hopefully by the end of the year, but if it slips into 2023, no one will be surprised.
I'm not surprised by anything anymore.
Fair enough. Okay. And the card game. Why are you bringing the card game back?
Both love and stupidity, which is why I do everything. So we learn lessons all sorts of fun ways. And a while ago, our beloved layout person, I'm totally going to throw our beloved layout person under the bus. Love you, Matt, but I'm throwing you under the bus. Matt came up and said, hey, I've got all the PDFs of the card game. I think it would be pretty easy to redesign it, put some new art in, release it, and it would be a quick and dirty thing that we could get out there, and people who like the card game could play it again, and that would be fun. We're like, yeah, that would be fun and easy.
And this was 3 years ago.
Yeah. Fast forward to now, and I'm like, why is this not out yet? But it's one of those things where, and when I say I'm throwing Matt under the bus, it's not Matt's fault. It's all of our fault because we keep throwing things at Matt. Matt's like, hey, I'm going to work on the card game. And the rest of Catalyst is like, no, emergency, do this.
It's almost like you need a second layer.
Centurion needs to be laid out again. And so.
Centurion?
Yeah, the Roman gladiator or Roman version of the Duke.
Oh.
Kickstarter for it a while ago, and so they keep needing to relay out the tiles and stuff. I don't know.
I missed that one. Okay. I really like the Duke though.
Yeah, Duke is a good game. So it's not Matt's fault. It's that we keep throwing things at Matt that pulls him away from the thing he wants to do.
Got it.
But it is almost there. The cards have been proofed. So now that he's got final versions of the cards, he can pull out their images and put them into the rule book, which has been all revised. That rule book, what was up with that thing?
I don't know. I know it came out. I never played it back in the day because I mean that would have been like soon after Magic came out that they did that one, yeah. I believe. So with that being said, when it I'm looking at let's try this. Hey, surprise.
Hey, look, there's a blog post.
So, all right. So clearly there's two different boxes.
Yeah.
I believe the description said there's going to be a Magic deck and a Machine deck. So you can pick if you're going to be Awakened or more like a Street Samurai, Decker, whatever is going to be in the tech side, I'm assuming.
Right.
Okay. And so is it going to be closer, we'll say, to Magic the Gathering or say Netrunner?
Netrunner. So we don't at the moment we certainly don't have a plan to do continual updates to it.
Okay.
If the nature of the business is if things go wild and there's a lot of demand for more cards, okay, sure, we'll do more cards. But right now it's just, we're going to release all the cards. Some of these were upgrades that were released with the trading card game. So they had different sets that came out, and we've collected like all the cards that were released and put them in these two boxes.
Okay. So this is the complete collection of cards, whether it's starter decks or booster packs or expansions. Every single card that was made is in here. And I'm assuming it has like full play sets. So like if you're limited to 3 cards in a deck, you're going to get 3 copies of everything.
So you could make 2 decks from each box. So if you buy a box, you could make a deck, your friend could make a deck, and you could play. but you can then mix and match between the boxes to if you really want to completely customize your deck. But you can play with 2 people right out of the gate with 1 box.
How many cards are going to come in each box?
Oh, why are you asking me details?
Because the audience wants to know.
100 some, I think it 150 to 180 or so.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Got it. Okay. No, that's fine. I mean, these are questions that come into my head, wanting to know about that.
If I had them all in a single PDF, I could open it, but each deck is like 20 PDFs.
Okay. So, and actually that does that does actually spin me into another question about this, and here I'm going to bring it back to us. So I don't know if you've been following the channel all week. I know that you kind of just do your work and you don't necessarily want to see the comments, you know.
I've been at least seeing what you're doing, and I like to keep track.
Okay. But one of the reasons that I wanted to do my Shadowrun week is because compared to most game universes, like usually like they will focus on a board game or they will focus on a role-playing game. And I know that like Dungeons and Dragons, you know, covers all sorts of things, but you know, it's Dungeons and Dragons. That's to me, that's kind of an edge case. It's not what you would normally see for a game universe.
Dungeons and Dragons is not normal.
Right. I mean, it is quote unquote the standard, but I'm just saying it's not like they're so big that if they want to say, oh, we're going to make this random product that everybody else would be like, why? And they'll still sell, you know, 1 million copies of it or whatever.
Yep.
But Shadowrun, I think, is relatively unique in the fact that it's not just one type of game. It's, you know, you've got board games, you've got card games, you've got you've got your Prime Runner miniatures, which everyone says you need more of. So
that's true. I need to get back on that one.
Add that to the
we have some designs for them.
Where are they?
In cyberspace. Need to get made into actual things.
Run a mini Kickstarter. Like it's a tiny Kickstarter. We're just making 5 figures. I mean, come on. Can't be that hard.
One Kickstarter at a time.
Okay, fine. But and I would even go as far as to say that most of this variety has actually come out under your time as the line developer. Like I have DM, and this doesn't come out well at all. Anyways,
that one predates me by a while.
A little. It almost predates me by a while. But I mean, like outside of like DMZ, you know, until you took over, there wasn't the variety. So why have you put Shadowrun into so many different types of gaming products?
So, much as I'd like to take the full credit, it goes to the whole Catalyst team. So, I mean, the main idea is that however you're playing, I want you to be playing Shadowrun. Because Shadowrun, I love the rules and everything, but Shadowrun, really the beating heart of what makes it great is that setting. That setting is so compelling, so much fun to look at, and so much fun to play in that no matter how you're playing games, I want you playing Shadowrun. So if we need to meet you at some other form of game that you're playing, then we'll meet you there. And so, but that's also been the philosophy of the other people at Catalyst and the management at Catalyst. And that's why they have purposely gone out to get things like Crossfire and 0 Day and Shadowrun Encounters, because we just want people to have fun in the universe, however they like to play games.
Sure. But I mean, and this isn't trying to pick on, you know, another major Catalyst game line. Yeah, but you know, personally, I would say the BattleTech community is probably a bit bigger than Shadowrun, but BattleTech doesn't seem to get that same treatment. They have the BattleTech board game. They have an RPG that doesn't seem to get a lot of love. But I don't see the other games. They don't have a card game. They don't have, a quote unquote board game, as it were, that they do with Shadowrun. So why does Shadowrun get that love?
So first of all, just wait.
Are you saying you have inside information?
There might be some stuff going on.
Okay. Oh, sure. No, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I believe that they would want to do that. I mean, they've got what was it? Succession Wars that hasn't been touched in quite a while. So, anyways,
can you think of anyone at Catalyst who would particularly like a big, ginormous Succession Wars type board game?
At least 4.
So their thoughts are never far from such a thing.
That's fair.
That's fair.
I'll
say. And they've tried different things with BattleTech, but BattleTech has been on kind of an unusual path in the past few years. I mean, yeah, right now it's doing fantastic. It is having one of the best resurgences it's ever had, but that is a lot tied to the Clan Invasion Kickstarter, which did great. If you go back a little bit before the Clan Invasion Kickstarter, BattleTech was kind of in a retrenching mode. It was a time when they were trying to figure out what was the right direction for BattleTech to go in, and so there just wasn't a ton coming out for it at all. And then the Kickstarter blew up, and so then for a long time, all BattleTech activity was just trying to keep up with the Kickstarter.
Right.
Like, oh, did we actually promise to design 30 t-shirts? Why did we promise that? They had to do that.
Can I have a bath toy back?
Not right now.
Why
not?
The little ones.
So that's where they are right now, is seeing different ways they can build off the continued momentum of the Clan Invasion Kickstarter.
Okay.
And so some of that is giving people the type of things that they want. So giving them force packs and big neoprene mats and things. But there will be more diversifying of the BattleTech line as they keep pushing forward. But that's a lot of work. So there's not enough people necessarily to go around to do all the things.
Okay. Well, and I wasn't trying to divert into BattleTech.
No, every production meeting I have does that. So why should this be? It's a running joke at production meetings that someone has to bring up BattleTech and then I have to yell at them.
That's fair. No, I'm just saying I do like the fact that you have tried a lot of these things. Like 0 Day, I absolutely love that game. I did a review on it earlier this week, and to me it feels like you've got two hackers going at it. Like when you watch the movie and you've got like the hacking competitions, and I mean that's what it feels like to me. And like you said, it's a different. It's putting Shadowrun where the players are, as opposed to making the players come to where Shadowrun is. So I like that. I like seeing what you guys are doing. Is there actually, real quick before I jump into that question, 0 Day, it is a fantastic 2-player game. Have you considered a standalone expansion that could then make it a 4-player game?
Loosely, I think they tried, and it's actually more difficult than it sounds to get it to work. The dynamic of that game is really very two-player dependent. I think it would also be an issue because the core designers of that game are outside of Catalyst, so we would probably want to bring them in to brainstorm how that would work. So
Okay.
there were discussions about it. It's fiendishly difficult.
Okay.
So it's
My
not
brain
on the
does.
front burner at the moment.
My brain doesn't think it is, and I would like to see it. So there, I have that on the record.
I will take that as a request.
All right, then where I actually wanted to go. So we've got the card game coming. Is there, are there, I mean, obviously you can't give specifics, but are there other, alternative game types that are being worked on at the moment?
Yes, I did mention in the post that there's a board game being worked on. The name has come out a few times. Shadowrun Takedown. So it will be a kind of squad-based tactical game where you have your team of runners and try to take them through a certain scenario, and there will be clocks that you're trying to beat and other built-in obstacles that you try to beat to complete the scenario on time.
Okay, for the record, Takedown is not in the blog post.
No, I did not specifically mention the name. I said board game just because I was being vague.
Oh, got it. Okay. Oh, there it is. Yeah, and a new board game that you'll hear about soon, maybe on a live stream somewhere.
Maybe. Giving you special info.
Oh, you're so awesome. And I'm gonna venture out on a limb and guess that is not coming at all this year.
For sale, no. A Kickstarter this year is possible. We'll see.
Oh, okay, got it. Is it going to run better than the last Kickstarter for a Shadowrun board game?
Yes. So one of the reasons you haven't seen a new Shadowrun Kickstarter was because Brawl Ops had so many problems. So many. And one ginormous problem in particular. So we don't want to do a Shadowrun Kickstarter again until we know that it will run smoother. Logistically, we've solved a ton of problems with the BattleTech Kickstarter. So that the BattleTech Kickstarter helped us make more connections. It helped us get warehousing and more spots. So our distribution network worldwide has improved. And so a lot of the logistics are much better. But the other thing is we want to make sure that whatever our next Shadowrun Kickstarter is at the printer before we start the Kickstarter. So that people don't have to worry about, oh no, the design's been delayed again or some other delay. We're going to say, no, it's printing. So now you can jump on it and it will be in your hands in fairly short order.
Right. We've submitted all the files and we're running the Kickstarter to know how many copies we need to run.
Right. To gauge the interest and go from there. Yep.
Got it. Okay. That's actually really good to hear. Any other things that you want to share with us?
I think I ran down most of the list of stuff. I don't think I mentioned the art book. So this was a fun thing. And this was, again, just one of the fun opportunity things where we saw that printers could make these books of large, heavy cardstock pages that just come right out of the portfolio. So you buy a book of 40, our book will have 40 images that are all removable. So they're small posters, sturdy, that you can put up wherever you want to put up posters. So we ran a poll to get some fan choices on what art they thought should be submitted. And then we put that in with some stuff that we already knew we wanted to submit. Like there was no way we were going to not put the Elmore cover in a Shadowrun art book, because how would you not? In fact, it's on the cover of the Shadowrun art book. But so we'll have that portfolio book coming. That is at the printers. So we'll have that in the near future. And it's just full of Shadowrun prettiness.
Yeah. Why'd you do it? So you just, so how big are the prints?
I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 by 17.
Okay. Wow. Those are going to be big. That's good.
Yeah, it's a good sized book.
Okay. And what did you think of the fan choices for that one? Happy with them?
The fans have
Surprised?
fantastic taste. I think they chose a lot of good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that coming out, and I think that was a really interesting approach to doing something like that. And I think it was really good that you involved the fan community in it. I was intending to do my votes on a stream live, and squirrels.
They're powerful.
They are indeed. So, all right, so I think that is actually all the questions I have for you at the moment. Honestly, this has been a lot of fun. I do apologize for it being somewhat disorganized.
It's a conversation. What conversation have you ever had where you sometimes forget what to say? I stumbled over words, whatever. It's fine.
When have you and I never had a conversation like that?
I have it all the time.
Exactly. But I am really excited. I like the direction that Shadowrun is going. I have had a lot of fun getting the new products as they come out, and seeing the direction that you are taking the line. I think there is a lot of potential there, even for a game that's been around for over 30 years now. And I think it's awesome what you're doing with it. Any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
First, just thanks to you for your energy and all the talk you're doing about Shadowrun. You're very much appreciated, and thanks for having me on. And then just thanks to everyone who plays Shadowrun. It is a fantastic setting, and the more I get to play in it, the more fun I have. And so it's great that there's other people playing it too, and we can all stay in the shadows and do crazy things.
Exactly. So with that said, do hang on for a second. I want to say goodbye to you in the backstage, but everybody, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry I didn't address as many of the comments in that I wanted to, but my brain went elsewhere. But regardless, I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and stay safe out in the shadows. We'll talk to you next time. And